who in here does feel like they understand the metabolism decently well? Decently well? Pretty well?
I think looking at it, I can understand it, but like to explain it, no.
Okay.
That's something I need to work on.
Okay.
But it's good.
I want you guys to walk me through it. Okay?
Okay.
Okay? And because so everyone that feels reasonably confident on something, on some aspects of it, put a bunch of brains that have partial knowledge together on something, you usually can figure it all out. Not gonna lie.
Okay.
But you have to be willing to say it. That's the thing.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna try to work through it together,
I
and
will
we're gonna
use
go
my notes.
through the whole thing. And so, because it seems like you just need the full picture, because Grossbeck
I'm
breaks it
just
up
lost,
piece
man.
by piece. We're gonna go through the full picture on one thing, and I think that'll help you out. The biggest thing for you on to be able to keep getting that down is just drawing it out, reviewing it, and being able to teach it to somebody. That's the best advice I have about memorizing that type of thing. Okay. What are we starting with?
6 carbon.
Glucose, which
6
is a 6-carbon chain. Is everyone all right with that?
Yes.
Does that make sense? Okay. I'm saying I have to write down the time. Okay. Everyone knows why it's 6 carbons, right?
Like specifically?
Okay. So, what is the formula for glucose?
It's
So
H12.
C6H12O6, okay? So we're gonna ignore these guys for right now, because we're trying to get the concepts of what's going on, not the organic chemistry of the mechanisms that are happening. We don't care about that, just the process. So we're just gonna look at the carbons, okay? So we have a 6-carbon unit. Technically it starts in a ring, but we're not gonna go into that, okay?
Oh, that's
6 carbons. What is the first step?
ATP input?
So ATP input.
Is that right?
How-
ATP.
How much input?
two ATP input.
So 2 ATP. What do we get?
ADP.
2 ADP. Okay?
And that,
And the 2 phosphates from,
Then that's sugar cleavage, right?
And then sugar cleavage is the second step.
Mhm.
Okay? So first we invest. We put in energy so we can get energy out. That's going to put a phosphate on each end of the carbons of the 2.
So is sugar cleavage when it breaks to the 3 and 3 in the phosphate, or is that
So,
when the phosphate attaches to?
so I'll give you a little bit deeper knowledge, and I think it'll make a little more sense.
Okay.
Glucose starts out as a ring. We add 1 ADP, so there's 1 ATP, so we have a phosphate on this ring. When we add that second phosphate, that first phosphate, it's gonna break,
Mhm.
so it becomes a straight out chain. When we add that second phosphate, it breaks again, so it becomes 2 pieces. When it breaks again, that's sugar cleavage. So we input 2 ATP, okay, so to get phosphates on the end, and then it breaks into 2 3-carbon chains. And that is the sugar cleavage step. Is that all right? Okay. And I know we're rolling, so when you need to stop me, just either throw something at me or you holler out my name, doesn't matter what, if you're here to learn something and I'm going too fast for you to learn it, then you better stop me, otherwise you came here for no reason. But yeah.
So that's the sugar cleavage step,
Yep, sugar cleavage.
step 2.
Yep, step 2, sugar cleavage. What is step 3?
NADH production.
NADH production. That means we're going to be putting in what?
NAD.
Putting in NAD.
So we're going to put in NAD+. Okay? At the same time, so there are 2 NAD pluses and 2 phosphates. At the same time, 2 phosphate ions are coming in. Okay? It happens, deals with you increase the attraction for the phosphates when you do this process. That's the basic idea. So the two NADs each grab a hydrogen apiece, so they turn into two NADH. In Brother Baker's class, you'll see two NADH2. Same thing. I just won't go into the
And don't the
semantics.
phosphates attached to the other side of the molecule?
So the phosphates also came in. So we're gonna get a phosphate, 3 carbons, phosphate, phosphate, 3 carbons, and a phosphate. Does that make sense?
So where did the NAD and everything come from?
So this entire process is happening inside of a cell in the cytosol or cytoplasm. So inside the cytosol, there's a lot of nutrients, vitamins, chemicals, things that are just floating around. It's partially what composes the cytosol. So NAD plus and later FADH, they're B vitamins that are floating in the cell. And so they're actually just present there all the time. And so it's just when certain molecules have the right attraction or affinity for specific things, then that's when they'll act upon them. And so it's the NAD, you can just think of it, it was floating there and it knew it needed to go there, so it went there. It's
Okay.
the easiest way to think of it, unless you want it.
So once you get the sugar cleavage, that's when that reacts to that.
Yeah, sugar cleavage, and then the NAD plus is gonna come in NADH formation.
I'm just confused on where you got the second phosphate. Like it was one, and then now they have 2 of them. So where did that come
That's also just the extracellular fluid, isn't it?
Yeah,
This
Just
is-
wandering around, wants to hang out.
Or the
Yeah.
intracellular, the cytoplasm.
kind of like when you talked about the cell, how there was a lot of like potassium inside the cell, remember that? There's also other things inside the cell like phosphate ions, there's sodium ions, there's, you know what I mean, there's just a lot of things that are inside our cells. And so it's floating around
Okay.
for simplicity's sake. Okay, is everyone all right on that?
Mhm.
Okay, so ADP, what does that stand for? Adenosine diphosphate. So ATP stands for what? Adenosine triphosphate. So you're just adding one phosphate on, and then it goes from ADP to ATP. So how many ATP can we form? You're about to say it.
4.
4. Because we have 4 phosphate groups.
I'm like,
ADP comes, attaches, turns into ATP. ADP attaches, ATP. ADP attaches, ATP. ADP attaches to ATP. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Said it really fast. So it's totally fine if it doesn't make sense.
That
Okay?
didn't make sense.
So real quick, so I'm gonna write, so step 4 is ATP production. So I'm gonna write it out and then I'll explain it a little bit better.
Alright, cool.
So ADP, 4 ADP come, you get 4 ATP.